Okay, you're all
Okay, you're
good to
all
go.
good to go.
Oh, it's loading. Please don't give me any problems. Okay. Would you like me to start?
Yes, please go ahead, Gilda.
Go ahead, Gilda.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Gilda Hilaire. Thanks again for having me. I'm really excited today to share with you guys some brand examples. And I really want this to be a conversation. Feel free to laugh because in the next couple of slides, I'm going to make fun of myself. And when and share with you examples of how I started out in the wonderful world of email marketing, not knowing what some of the email best practices are. I'm going to walk you through real life examples on would love for you guys to raise your hand, ask a question, interject, because that's the only way that we all learn is when we ask questions. So let's get started. So what we'll cover today is just real email, some different brands, what works and what doesn't work. And as I mentioned to you the first time I presented to the group, I just don't want you guys to be in a place where all you are doers, where you're just pushing the button. But you really want to put on that strategic hat and be able to um, give feedback when you see something that doesn't work or something that goes against best practices. So that's why I think it's really important for you to not only focus on, you know, how do I build an email with ImScript, or how do I, focus on the data, but it's also important to know the overall strategic part of email marketing. And here's why. So we're going to take a step back. And like I said, the examples you're about to see, and feel free to laugh, um, are things that I created when I first started in email world using ExactTarget, which is now to all of you, Marketing Cloud. So was this is an example of an email I created. I used to work for DePuy which is a company, which is a Johnson Johnson company that focused on medical devices. And this one was an invitation going out to patients for a free seminar on managing osteoarthritis of the knee. There's so many things wrong with this email, right? Number one, this was a flat JPEG, meaning where you see all the body copy here, it was all part of one big JPEG. There was no text, meaning when I created this in InDesign and in Photoshop. I created it as a JPEG, and I just imported the JPEG, and that was it, right? I didn't create a banner at the top and text blocks here so that the text would render. I didn't know any better. The other thing that, when you look at this, colors, there's so many colors, like your eyes hurt after looking at this email. And it's really hard to read. And the other thing is, you have to think about your target audience, right? So this is for managing osteoarthritis of the knee. We're targeting a certain age group, meaning if they receive this email, are they going to have any issues with this magenta that I'm using back here, this yellow, this really strong, bright, burnt yellow color that you see here, right? And then when they click seating is limited, sign up today, which one's the call to action, right? There's so many different places. Like there's a seating zone, sign up today. Am I clicking here to sign up, or do I click here to register? What do I want? What do I want them to do? What's the CTA? Because right now, when I look at this, it's confusing. I want them to sign up, but I also want them to click here to register, right? Or they could call. Seating is limited, but then registration is required. So the copy is all over the place. And when you look here, there's two competing logos, and then there's a third trademark. You know, again, I really didn't know what I was doing. I just wanted to create a pretty email, and my focus was getting this email out the door. So I really didn't follow any email marketing best practices, which is why you're seeing this, why you're seeing that this looks like this. So this is something you should not do. Knowing what you know today, this would certainly bounce if anyone tried to create a flat JPEG and send it out of the marketing cloud. Not only would it bounce, but you can potentially cause your IP getting blocked by Yahoo, Gmail, etc. Wow, this is another one that I created. And this, now that I'm looking at this, this definitely is bad for the eyes. Again, I was just focused, and there was a terminology that we used years ago called spray and pray. Back then, we're just focused on building, sending, building, sending, building, sending. We really didn't really think about, and back then, you know, there really weren't thought leaders discussing what are some of the email best practices, how to ensure that your emails don't get into the don't get caught in the spam box, or how to prevent your IP address from getting blocked. So when you look at this email, my God, right? The white on this dark green hurts the eyes. And this image on the background, I mean, back then this was extremely popular, so we could get away with designing and building something like this. But now it's not. This is meant more for print than it is for email. So keep that in mind as well when you're building and designing these emails. You know, a lot of times, especially with this example, when I was building this, I was building this off of a paper invitation that they were mailing out to customers, when I should have really been focused on building this for email versus taking what a printed material and building the exact copy for email. Things that are meant for print, things that are meant for web, doesn't necessarily mean it's meant for email, right? So you have to keep that in mind when you're tasked with designing or sending out an email. Take a couple steps back, and make sure that the email that you're building is meant for email, and it's not something that you're just doing a lift and shift from web or from print, which is exactly what I did here, and then copying and pasting it into email. So when you think about an email, what makes a good or bad email? Number one, subject line, right? You have to think about the length of the subject line. Is it personalized? Does it reflect the content that you're sending? The second thing is the content personalized and relevant. Does it use demographics like name and geography as well as preferences and behavior? But you also don't want to overdo it with the personalization in the subject line and in the content. What I mean by that is I worked at a healthcare organization, and they love personalizing everything. And they wanted to send an email to um, young adults, and they wanted to include the child's name. And what ended up happening is they mentioned the child's name in 8 different parts of the email. So the subject line said, "Dear first name." The subject line said, you know, their first, had the first name of the individual. And then in the body copy of the email, it had "Dear first name. This message is for dear first name. Dear first name has an appointment, blah, blah, blah. If dear first name has any questions, please contact. We look forward to seeing dear first name at their appointment." And I had to pause and say, wait a second. Why do we have the first name in this email more than 3 times? Is that necessary, right? So that's why it's so important for you to make sure that you're reading the email from top to bottom, and you have to decide, we love to personalize, but is it necessary to include, you know, this, this attribute this many times in the body of an email? So, needless to say, my team did not send the email out because it had their first name more than 3 times. And I sent a copy back to the marketing team and said, we will not send this out until you guys remove their first name this many times in the body copy of the email. Is the call to action clear? What are you being asked to do? Is it clear, and is not easy, but is it easy? So what is meant by that is, if you go back to um, this example, the call to action here is not clear. Seating is limited, sign up today. Registration is required, click here to register. Do we want them to sign up or do we want them to register? So in this example, the call to action is obviously not clear at all. So the person wouldn't know what they're doing, right? So you want to make sure that what you're asking the person to do is clear and that it's easy, and that it's easy for them. It's not difficult for them to find. And you want the content to be above the fold. When you look at an email, especially when you look at an email on your computer or your mobile device, right? 9 times out of 10, you're going to scan or look at the top of the email. So you want to make sure that whatever content is above the fold, that primary message, the meat of the message, right? The copy that you want or the action that you want them to take is above the fold, right? And that is not below, and that they don't have to search for it. You also want to make sure it's timely. Does the content align with the behavior of the action? So here's an example. Let's say that there's a store that's opening on Friday. Would you send a message of the store opening to your recipient Friday morning, right? So the grand opening is at 9 a.m. on Friday. Would you send the email to your recipients that have subscribed to receive this alert Friday morning at 8 a.m. when the opening is at 9? Or would you send it a couple days before, letting them know that the store is opening on Friday, and then sending a follow-up reminder Thursday or Friday morning, right? So again, you want to make sure that it's aligned with whatever event or holiday or anything that you're doing. So another example is, I don't know if some of it might be late, but I'll have a recording. I have the AMP script session that's tonight, and then the deliverability session that's on Thursday. So I program GoToWebinar to send a reminder email the day before the event and an hour before the event, because I want it to be timely and I want it to be relevant to the event that I'm hosting. You also want to make sure that it renders across various devices. Needless to say, these did not render at all on anybody's devices. Again, this was back in 2008. These did not render on anybody's devices because it was a flat JPEG. So and back then deliverability wasn't really important in 2008. So these did not render nicely on devices. And I think back then a lot of people had like the Blackberries and stuff. So you want to make sure that, and I think I'd mentioned this when I first presented, when you build your email, you want to identify a set group of people that you want to send a test message to. And you want to make sure that the email renders across mobile, desktop, and the various different environments. You also want to make sure the text to image ratio, email best practice says it's 80-20. An email should not contain only images. This is something that you should embed, maybe put a sticky note on your computer. Email should not contain only images. Nowadays, Google, Yahoo, MSN, they will block the email. So I got away with it back in 2008, but you cannot get away with it now in 2020. So you want to make sure that you have that 80 to 20 rule where it's 80% text, 20% image, and you definitely don't want to make sure that it's 100% images. What I want you to get out of this slide is you as architects, as developers, as channel marketers, you have the opportunity to kind of step in and use all these email best practices when somebody asks you to build and send an email, right? You don't want to just be doers. You want to be able to pause and say, you know, are we personalizing the email? How many times are we personalizing this? Is a call to action clear? Is it timely? Wait, before we send it, let us make sure that we test the email, make sure that it renders across all devices. If somebody sends you an email where it's image only, you should pause and say, well, email best practice, if we send this, there's a high possibility that the email is going to get blocked by Gmail. You want to make sure that you use these knowledge, these email best practice rules to apply it in everything that you do. So here's an email. And what you see, the subject line says Anisha. So this is personalized. The MTA is going contactless at New York subways and buses. You notice there's a nice little animation here. This is the copy. The CTA button says learn more. What we like, the subject line. It's personalized, right? Name, geography, right? They know that she's in New York. There's this engagement animated GIF, right? You notice that there's a good text to image ratio, right? Because it's just one animation. There's the header here and the body copy here. But if you look at this email on your phone or on your desktop, this CTA button is definitely going to be below the fold. So we'd probably look at ways to move the CTA above the fold, or as part of the body copy, include the call to action in there. But overall, this is a really good, engaging email. The content is relevant to the customer. And it's eye-catching. So we just want to take the CTA button and figure out, if we can move it at the top. Subject line. This innovative new eye cream is a hydration game changer. This email is coming from Sephora. So when you look at it, you notice some of these images, shop to redeem, noteworthy newcomers, and then you have your CTA, another CTA button here, shop now. So let's look at what we like and what we could change. We like the personalization with the reward status and point balance. So if you see that in here, look what just arrived. These new beauties are sure to be bestsellers. There's a strong, engaging imagery. This gives you here shop to redeem, right? It also tells you up here, this is where you see the points, you have 872 points. So that's another way to personalize it. You don't always need to have first name or geography. The personalization is here with the points. But what we change is this new innovative eye cream is a hydration game changer. But we don't see the hydration cream to all the way down here at the bottom of the email. So that's several frames below and it's below the fold. So we'd probably look at ways to bring this above the fold, right? Especially since this is the call, this is why I'm receiving this email, because they want to, tell me about this new eye cream. So I shouldn't have to search for it, right? It should be the top of the frame. I would also increase text to image ratio. This is image heavy because it's Sephora, it's image heavy. But remember when we met the first time, what if somebody has images disabled in their Gmail or Yahoo or Outlook, right? When you think about that, when you add that into perspective, like what are they going to see if they get this email, right? They're not going to see any of these images. So we want to make sure that the text still is engaging and that the text is still going to display your CTA. And then the thing is that we change is large image size renders well on mobile but poorly on desktop. So we want to make sure that you code responsively to accommodate the different environments, especially if you're using this heavy, image and less text. You want to make sure that you test the heck out of this email to make sure that it renders the way you want it to render on any of these different environments. Three tips to make your Dropbox work for you. Another one where this image is engaging, it's really eye-catchy, there's things that are moving, the CTA is up here, go to your Dropbox. There's body copy here, and then there's another CTA button that's at the bottom that says visit your Dropbox. So let's look at what we like and what we don't like. Definitely the animation, right? It draws your eye, your eyes automatically draw to it. We like the strong subject line, right? 3 tips to make your Dropbox work for you. One of the things with subject lines is numbers, right? When you include a number in there, like 100%, 25% off, 50% off, 3 tips, 10 tips, right? The 5 best practices, etc. 9 times out of 10, people are most likely to open that, right? So there's a strong subject line in there. But what we would change is the CTA is unclear. The first one is go to your Dropbox. The second one is visit your Dropbox, right? So it's unclear. What am I going to do with Dropbox? While we love the image, but think about it. It takes a lot of that real estate space, right? That you need in order to call out the relevant message, the relevant copy, right? And if you look at this text, there's a lot of text, right? Generally people scan emails and the message is lost if there's too much text. So you might want to clean it up. The other thing is you might want to add bullets. Bullets make things a little bit more easy to scan. But when you look at this email, it's not scannable. You have to literally read through in order to get the why. Why am I getting this? What do they want me to read? What do they want me to do? The other thing is I might add in here is that is this really personalized? Probably not. I don't see a dear first name. I don't see a closing. It just seems very impersonal. So I'd probably look at ways to make this a little bit more personable to the recipient. Subject line, 1999 called, and then you have your emoji, throwback to school. And then you have your CTA button here, submit an idea, and then you have a cute picture right here of some cute kids and a pencil. See what we like. The subject line is engaging, it uses an emoji, the CTA is clear, it's definitely above the fold. There is good text to image ratio, right? Meaning if somebody had disabled images from being downloaded, they would definitely see this email because the image is below and this is all text. So if they were sending this out of the marketing cloud, I'd say they're using, 3 content blocks to build this. 1, 4, 1, 2, 3, and then 4 for the picture, right? So there's a good text to image ratio. We know that this wouldn't get blocked, but the email feels generic and could be personalized just a little bit. It feels like one of those emails that everyone's going to receive the same email. It's not personalized. And you kind of want to personalize this just a tad bit. And you might want to make it a little bit more exciting. It seems a little bit flat. Right, so not a lot of changes. It's still a good email, but those are just food for thought on the different ways that you can personalize the email. My favorite, Wayfair, inside the planter you were looking for. You notice here, there's a lot of images. Don't forget this fine. There's a CTA here, shop now, top picks for you. Leads me to believe that this email is personalized for me based on my previous shopping history. Um, right? And then the other thing is you see the CTA here, shop now. So the shop now is very consistent. And you'll notice free shipping over $49, right? Who doesn't want free shipping if you spend over $49? So we like the subject line. It's relevant, it's personalized. Both the primary and secondary messages are personalized based on the website behavior. It's timely based on, when the product was browsed. There's a clear CTA, which we spoke about, the shop now, right? And we see that this is above the fold, right? And the other thing is the planter you're looking for. As soon as I get this email, boom, right here, right? It dives right into the planter. I don't have to search for it. It's not below the fold. There's a good text to image ratio, right? Which means if I had images disabled, I would still be able to see a lot of the copy, which is great. And then the other thing that we haven't spoken about, there's a good use of white space. If we go back to this email, we'll notice that there's a lot of white space around here. But in this email, there's a good use of white space, right? So they're maximizing without overdoing it, the various sections or blocks within the email, right? It's not too much on the eyes. There's a really good balance between the white space, the images, and the CTA button. And that is what I wanted to present to you guys today. And let me just go back to some of the things we spoke about is when you're designing your emails, right, you want to make sure that you take a lot of this into consideration because even though a lot of you might look at it like, well, I just want to build emails. I really am going to focus on I'm just on the AMP script. I'm going to focus on setting up the triggers. I'm focused on the data. And if you think about it, AMP script is pulling, when you do the AMP script, it's pulling in a lot of the personalization fields, right? When you're setting up the email, you have to decide if you're going to do an A/B test. You have to decide what time the email is going out. You want to make sure that the email renders across the devices. When you're sending a test to yourself, now's the perfect time. Even if you're not the one that built the email, but if you're the one that's sending it, you want to make sure that you're still looking at the email from top to bottom and making sure that there's a text to image ratio. You do not want to send anything that looks like this or like this out because you will get blocked. And it's not by Salesforce, but Gmail, Yahoo, MSN, they're constantly scanning emails. And based on what I said last time, they have algorithms that's checking and validating and making sure that your email is not spam. This email and this would definitely get blocked because it's one big image. So you want to make sure that you take all of this into consideration when you're building and designing your emails. So thank you guys for having me, and let me know if any of you have any questions.
Okay, team, opening it out for questions.
Oh, somebody said, Althea said, love the real life examples. Oh, thank you. I have a lot. I think the real life example, I wanted to share the real life examples because I just want to show you guys my growth and progress. I don't want to sugarcoat anything with anybody to make it seem like, oh, I figured out how to use the Marketing Cloud platform without making mistakes on my own. It truly is a learning, and me sharing the real life examples is because I really, and I can't stress enough, I used to feel like I was pigeonholed, and I got to a point where I was just building and sending and not really thinking through the email design and email best practice. And with canned spam laws and the way that the Gmail algorithm is and Yahoo, MSN, I just want to make sure that when you guys are building and sending these emails, that it's getting in the inbox and that you're not building and risking your emails getting blocked by the ISPs.
I had a quick question. This is Althea, and it definitely is helpful to see the real life examples, Gilda. My question is, I haven't worked as an email marketer yet. I do have a strong marketing background. Do you find that in most positions that it is a marketing team who is writing the emails and then the email marketer, marketing cloud person is just checking them, or do they really have an opportunity to contribute in real life? Because I know you say, yeah, just don't push a button, but realistically, are there those clear lines of delineation, or do they muddle in a lot of work situations that you're aware of?
Sometimes, I've been in positions where, and I have several examples. So there's three I can think of. In one company, my team was just responsible for building and sending. We weren't the ones doing any design, any creative. And that's the example where we received a copy and they had first name in there, like, no joke, maybe like 8 times.
Okay.
Dear child name, their child first name had, and I pushed back and I said, do you guys notice that you just sent us an email where the first name is mentioned in there 8 times? We're not sending this. So I pushed back, and then they sent it they sent me the revised, they sent us the new version and they had it 6 times, and I pushed back again. I said, I will not send this. Go back, modify it, remove child first name. I only want to see it in there 3 times, right? And I've led teams where we were the ones doing I worked at a consulting company, and we supported over 300 marketers, but my team was the one that was doing all the creative designs for the emails. We were just getting the copy, right? But what I love when you're the ones that are that's in the marketing cloud that is sending the test emails, that's where I see that you could make an impact. And if you're the one that's doing all the final testing, this is where you can come in and say, based on testing, this email is below the CTA is below the fold. Or you're using 2 sentences as part of the subject line. Or, there was an email a couple years ago that I didn't send it, but the email operations team. So there are times where you're just going to be the one doing the governance of the platform, right? So meaning there's an email operations team that's sending the email. There's another team that's doing the design. You are just in charge of the platform. You're in charge of the making sure that their permissions are set. If anybody has any questions, they come to you. So I've had roles like that as well. And then somebody alerted me that an email went out, and the email was designed for women only, but it went out to men. So there are a lot of problems with this email. One is the data wasn't being honored, the data wasn't being looked at, the email design was completely incorrect. So this is where you kind of step in and say, okay, please include me as part of the QA process, meaning I want to see every single email that goes out of that door, because based on my experience and adhering to the email best practice rules, I want to be part of that sign off. So that's where I see the biggest impact is just insert yourself. Even if people push back, insert yourself and push back and say, this is not going to go out. Unless I have final signature, I'm not sending out these emails.
Okay, and I guess you're also showing them the value that you can bring when you push back and something meaty that they may have missed, and they're like, okay, she knows what she's talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And set rules and regulations. Like when I managed email marketing teams, I made a clear rule to all the business owners: we will not send an email out unless we have final sign off. And it always came in handy if an email went out and you know, somebody would come back and say, "Oh, this was like, oh well, we tried to stop it and we were told go ahead. So this is our receipt of us pushing back and us being told just send it, right?" So that was always another rule that I had for my team is emails will not go out unless we have final sign off.
Thanks,
But
Gil.
yeah, I love being in email operations. I love being, you know, on the technical side, on the operation side. I made rules and I stuck by my rules no matter what. But thank you for asking. That's a good question. Brings me
Thanks.
back.
Thank you.
Yeah, nothing beats personal examples, Gilda. Like, you know, we can read all we can, but when it comes from real life experiences, it means a lot. Yeah.
I still have scars from real life experience. Somebody had sent an email. I worked at an insurance company and she was going on vacation and she just wanted to send an email out the door. Didn't test it. Well, two examples. This one first example, she didn't test it. She just wanted to go on vacation. So she sent the email out to a list, right? She sends the email out, sent it, and then she was like, I'm done. So what was wrong with this email? She sent an internal email with financial information to the all subscribers list and tried to blame it on the marketing cloud and said that it was the marketing cloud didn't have measures in place to prevent it, when all in all the marketing cloud does have measures in place to prevent you from sending an email to all subscribers. But she was just in a rush and didn't QC the email and didn't do anything. I worked at another company where this woman sent an email. The subject line was 2 sentences and it was a flat JPEG. She sent it out on a Friday, I think after 4 or 5 o'clock. Over the weekend, ExactTarget blacklisted us because Yahoo, Gmail marked it as spam and we got blacklisted. And what blacklist means is that no one can send emails out of the marketing cloud unless we had to get legal involved to work with Gmail, Yahoo to remove the blacklist from the account. But again, it goes back to testing, knowing email best practices, and making decisions to help prevent some of these issues from happening.
Great. Yeah. Team, any more questions for Gilda? Okay, I just have like few things that I wanted to like, you know, quickly share with you guys as well. Not as much like the real life examples, but just a few articles that Salesforce has. I'll share the links with you on the chat. So please, when you do get go through these. There's one on the email marketing campaign. There's best practices on how to like, you know, create one. Then there's a design toolkit. So this one I would recommend you to specifically go through like the tips that are provided here. Like it's easy to miss it. So you have to like, you know, go through some of these tips. There's a bunch about design that they mention, especially like if like how do you build responsive templates, and if you want to make it device friendly. There's even recommendations across like for multiple devices, like, you know, how do you do it? So all these, like if you ever like get into content creation and, you know, things that best practices that you need to follow, color, like, you know, coding for your campaigns and all that. It's pretty useful. Like, you know, Gilda mentioned the call to action button, right? That's very, very important. The first thing that needs to like come out when you look at it is call to action. And something about email file size.
Sure, your voice is echoing.
Oh, okay. Check. How about now?
Better.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, and then this one, like, is like a link for quite a bunch of articles that we have on email marketing best practices in Salesforce. So I'll just copy paste these links right now in chat, so you can just, take a note of it. Where's chat? Okay, hope you guys got that one. So just save that, save these links so you can refer to it later. Go read through it. Very, very useful information. Like, you probably would not think about it, but then when you actually go specifically, read through some of these, you'll be able to relate to what Gilda said as part of her examples, the real life examples, right? So there's quite a lot of good content out here. And if you do get time, I would recommend going through some of these. They would actually be best practices that comes from the industry side. So okay. Any other questions for Gilda?
Yeah, hi. Shivu, I have a question regarding image carousel. When we use image carousel in email, did it not work on Gmail when we send the email using email marketing cloud? And if that email go to Gmail account, then image carousel is not working. I tried it twice a time in the last week. But image when I'm seeing the preview of that email sent in preview, image carousel is working, but when I tested to send on my email ID, image carousel is not working. When I look into the article, it said the email will work with the Apple and Mac accounts like that. This is something on the help.salesforce.com.
You mean the image carousel?
The rotable image carousel image.
Okay, I haven't checked that. I know there's some limitation for that, but can you send me an email on the issue that you're having?
Is this the image carousel? Is that
Yes.
what I'm hearing?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Let me find some documents on that. There's been some rendering issues. It's not the image carousel doesn't work. It's Gmail that's blocking the image carousel from working. Here's a question for you. When you send the email to yourself in Gmail, when you click on preview on view as a web page, does it work?
Yeah, it was working in the preview, and when I am clicking on the web version of that email from Gmail ID, then it also working. But in normal inbox, it's not working.
Yeah, it's not. It's Gmail that's preventing it from working. Let me see if I could find anything to help with that.
Okay, thank you.
I'm making a note now.
Yeah, I think I've vaguely seen something about that in Stack Exchange as well, Gilda. So yeah.
I have one question, Shibu and Gilda. So I have had experience using GIF images, and sometimes they don't work in Windows Outlook. Like they become a video if you scroll down the image. So is there a way to kind of ensuring GIFs work properly in Microsoft Outlook? Or there is a limitation?
Right. So the animated GIFs, again, that Microsoft Outlook and Gmail are email designers' worst nightmare. They seem to be the ones blocking a lot of that animation from happening.
Okay.
And that is why when you're doing an animation, make sure that that first frame is the frame that you want displayed in Outlook, because 9 times out of 10 it won't work, and it's not a marketing cloud issue, it's an Outlook issue that's preventing it from animating.
Okay, thanks.
But again, going back to the question around the carousel, it'll all work if you do view as a web page, but when you look at it in the email itself, it won't render the way you want it to render. But let me see if there's anything on that as well that's come out, whether it's from us or Litmus or Rebel, if there's any new solution for animated GIFs to work in Outlook.
I have one more question. Do you have any suggestion on using countdown timers in emails? Which provider to use or like which app?
Oh, the countdown?
Countdown timer. So if there is an event that is starting in like 3 days, and if I want to like include a countdown timer in my email, which app do you think like works best across all environments? And is there any particular suggestion that you may provide?
Let me let me see what I can find on that one. I also want to make sure that whichever one that you use isn't one that's going to get blocked by Gmail or Outlook or Yahoo, and that's one that is a trusted countdown timer.
Okay.
Or I wonder if it could be an AMP script code, right? That could be used as a timer. So let me reach out to the email geeks community and see what I find on this for you.
Thank you, Gilda. Thanks.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I was kind of like thinking a use case for that one. Thanks, Ujjwal. Okay, team.
And just to say, I love what I'm hearing. Like, it sounds like a lot of you, which I love, are wanting to use like image carousels, the animated GIFs, the countdown timer. That's really, really thinking outside the box, and continue thinking outside the box. Continue thinking outside the box. The other thing I do, I have a Yahoo account, and I'm telling you guys, I have not deleted a single email from my Yahoo account in maybe 10 years. But what I would do from the reason I keep these emails is to really look at what other people are doing as part of their email designs and creativity. And people steal codes from each other, just like as an FYI. Litmus, especially Litmus, recognized that people started stealing their code to build and design emails. So you know what they would do? They would put secret messages in their HTML code. Especially like around the holidays, they would put, Happy New Year from everyone at Litmus. Or they would say, if you're good enough to steal our code, then you're good enough to work at Litmus. Here are some of the job openings. They knew people were stealing their codes, so they would put messages in their code. So this is just another tidbit for you guys. It's like, look at what other email designers are doing. Before you send it out, of course, test it, QA it, make sure it works. But I do love what I'm hearing and how you guys are all pushing yourselves to be more creative and think outside the box. That's a good way of approaching email.
Okay, any more questions, team? Okay, if not, we'll give you back a little over half an hour back. Thank you all for joining, and I'll upload the recording shortly to our playlist. Okay, and tomorrow we'll meet to talk about deliverability. So please do join back. A very important session. Okay, thank you all. Thank you all. Have a good morning.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Good evening.
Thank you. Thank you. Goodbye.